All right. So, yep, my name's Robin Mendoza. This is Big If, No More Jockeys, and the Legacy of the Car Game. So, has anyone here watched any No More Jockeys? Not a soul? What? Okay. All right. So, this is No More Jockeys. I thought, there were too many good reasons not to use a video. Okay, this is not actually fit to whatever. So, No More Jockeys. It sounds like it could be an absolute nightmare. It's a Zoom call game show started in the pandemic by three middle-aged English comedians. It's not that bad. And so the way that it works is the players take turns saying a name and then a category. So no more some category that person, use person lightly, fits into. So those categories will get eliminated as the game goes on, and they have to remember them. They're not writing them down or anything, and they're usually like having a glass of wine or whatever, so it gets kind of fuzzy. So I say category them in the sense that they're like, sort of arbitrarily cutting off these, categories and limiting the sort of, space of possibilities that they can choose from. So, it's last person standing. It had its origins as a car game between them, so you think of car games like, I can't think of that many right now. Contact is one I know of, but I'm sure you all have your own. And the feeling of it has this kind of like inventory rummaging, sort of turning your brain upside down and trying to shake out the loose change, and all you can come up with is like, yeah, for them, it's like snooker players or, like obscure English TV presenters or whatever. So again, the kind of feeling of it, there's this, like cutting off, sort of arbitrarily cutting off, the kind of possibility space. I'm calling that ecophagy in the sense of like consuming the environment, and for the drama of it, they can kind of choose how large of a section to cut off by, their category, like no more dead or, no more Europeans or whatever, or it can be small. So yeah, they're layering these constraints over each other that they can trip on. So those can be characteristic, occupational, like someone's occupation, accidental, like, some feature that they have, like superficial feature, or, historical, what person's done, where they've been, where they're from, conventional, tropical, in the sense of like tropes, some trope that that figure maybe embodies, anagrammatic, so rearranging the letters in their names, or homophonic, so sound alikes. So again, yeah, that kind of brain feel of it feels like to me a cross between like a crossword and something like code names, that kind of minefield of associations that build up, or Oulipo, like constrained poetry, plus it's called the sea lioning, like, petitioning somebody for like, where's your evidence, and like an online argument or something, and you're like racking your brains, trying to come up with something if you choose to engage, which is not always the best idea. Wasted by your own vanguard. I'm not going to explain that joke, but we have other games, where you kind of can, in a sense, like create your own difficulty, the choices that you make and how you sort of configure the space or the way that you play, like, can make it more or less difficult for yourself. So things like Wilmot's Warehouse, where I don't really have time to explain that if you don't know, but it's kind of like how you're choosing to arrange like these symbolic objects, and your kind of organization scheme for that, or Overboard, lies, something like Crypt, where you're sort of reconfiguring the environment. Oh, wait, I got to check my stuff. Encyclopedist, Battle Royale. So for No More Jockeys, they call the comment section on YouTube the below the line. The commenters are below the liners. So for your, kind of narrative design, you could have like these spectators, kibitzers, spectators who are doing commentary, and that can sort of feed into the overall kind of narrative presentation. So if you have like participants in some game or drama or contest or whatever, in No More Jockeys, it goes across seasons, so there's like how somebody's doing in a particular season and, people's investment in, their favorite. And there's this aspect of it too, where like they can choose to play sort of honorably or dishonorably, like worm their way out of an indefensible situation or like not walk when, I guess I forgot to explain something about how the game works. So it's like you have a limited number of challenges, and if somebody says a name that, you think belongs to a category that's already been ruled out, you can challenge and then usually have like a small amount of time to come up with evidence or, make your case. Anyway, so if you like come back from a challenge that you really should have like lost on, that can sort of be like you lose face, you can save face. So that can sort of be part of this like long-term, kind of narrative thing. I said pub source diegesis here in the sense that, again, the below the liners, it's like they're talking about No More Jockeys like it's real sports. So, there's like this kind of narrative, like sort of crowdsourced, narrative work going on of like framing things as like real sports events or whatever. But, and spectators participate in that. So like I said, with a challenge, there's a sort of limited amount of time to, find evidence like on Google or whatever. Obviously, there are other interactive fictions that already have like this search engine sleuthing kind of thing. You could think of something like Her Story. So whether that's like the real, like the web itself or like a, more artificial or constrained like database or something, and incorporate it like that. And the forensics, making a sort of convincing argument, ostension, like demonstrating that something exists or is the case, finding evidence. And then exploiting like different kinds of knowledges. So there's like common knowledge, general, domain-specific knowledge, technical knowledge, secrets, or cryptic stuff, anecdotal, and familiarity, or like you're just like an acquaintance with that person. And so that kind of like arguing your way back from a challenge. Kim Key, one of the comedians in it, is like that's his thing. He's great at it. And so I do like this idea of using like arguing semantics and doing this kind of like verbal legalistic pedantry as a kind of defense, or like a way to come back. So having that kind of like sort of legalistic argumentation be maybe kind of like a mini game within this game about like, in this case, coming up with names and categories and avoiding categories, can be this sort of like a skill check or something. And yet another thing about the way No More Jockeys works is there's like everything that gets said is like reincorporated at some point. Like everything becomes like a running in-joke or kind of meme within the show. So a lot of responses, a lot of names that get used recur, and I'd say Harold's here, like the improv long Harold, like that kind of recapitulation. Recycling inputs. So maybe you think of something like a parser game or something where you the player produces like an input, and then it could come back at some later point, whether for humor or to scare them or whatever. And then also like the comedians in No More Jockeys keep adding on these kind of like expressions for when they're introducing somebody. They'll say like, I'd like to introduce like your friend and mine, like we all know them, I've met them here, like just these kind of layering on top of each other, these I guess you could call them like fadic expressions, or these kind of conventional expressions. So I'm thinking of if you could, like for the player's input, maybe they have to keep like, like making the sort of syntax of their input, or whatever, way that they can like compose their answers or their inputs like more and more complicated as the game goes on, or have like this kind of etiquette thing accruing. And then just narratively, like that kind of that thing of having the inputs like feedback really directly into it can create these kind of I call them like perpetual motion machines. But there's, if you think of something maybe like what Nathan Fielder does, or like John Wilson or something, if you're familiar, like this kind of like reusing everything that comes up and sort of leaning into every coincidence can just generate like a lot of sort of momentum out of seemingly nothing. So yeah, no more Jockeys. It's on YouTube.
So rather than being really, even though we had a little juggling there, you ended early. That's great. So we've actually earned a chance for just a brief Q&A. So if we can invite everybody back to the stage, we will take just probably 3 questions before we wrap. We'll start with Robin, and we'll go to one for Jim. Anybody have a question to start?
I guess for somebody who like is very familiar with for Jockeys, so that's like for me, interactivity. If I like, would I be like an audience member interacting through some sort of parasocial aspect with the hosts that are like producing the show that we watch on YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, for No More Jockeys, yes, like as a commenter, you'd sort of be role playing as like a sports fan in the pub, like discussing, cricket or something like that. But some of the ideas I talked about here are also like things that you could just pull from, No More Jockeys and incorporate into some kind of, verbal game. Like recycling inputs or constraining, categories or something like that.